Welcome back to another episode of Magic's in the Mess, the go-to podcast for ambitious women ready to stop pretending, start aligning, and finally build success your way. I'm your host, Danielle McKinley, speaker, business and wealth strategist, and your go-to problem-solving hype girl. Here, we'll help you unlock powerful mindset shifts, discover your magic, and bring your dream life into reality. Each week, I'll deliver raw stories, proven business strategies, and powerful transformations with industry leaders to activate the magic in you. So if you're ready to ditch the pressure, the performative BS, and the noise telling you who you should be, hit subscribe and let's make some magic. Melissa, welcome to Magic's in the Mess.
Thanks for having me.
We are so happy to have you here today. So I want to dive in with you call yourself the anti-cookie cutter coach. Okay. So let's get right into that. Tell us what that means and how you think there should be a different approach to business.
Ooh, that's a great place to start. And I feel like that could take days, right, to dig into. The anti-cookie cutter approach is something I'm really passionate about because I feel like when I left corporate, started my own business, there was so much cookie cutterness to fit myself into. And I did that. And it wasn't until I kind of had this awakening that realizing that that was causing so much resistance and giving myself permission to do it my way and realizing that so many other women especially fall into that trap. And so I really have put forth an effort to create strategy always with the person behind the business in mind first. And it sounds so simple when I say it like that, but that wasn't the experience that I got from so many mentors and you know, different coaches and people that I worked with, that became something that is always first for me in everything I do. And also the people that I surround myself with, right? Like, are they looking to put themselves in a box? Or are they always curious of like, how can I maybe do this better or easier or differently? And what can I learn from other people?
So good. Okay. So we didn't mention this at the beginning, but for those of you that are listening in, we are doing a live podcast right now. So if you are listening to this, hop on the YouTube and you can check out some of the live footage because I want to just scan the room. How many of you have ever worked with a coach or hired, chosen a program and you were like, I didn't really get what I thought I would out of it? Okay. For those of you that are tuning in, every single hand went up and we've got about 20 people here. So let's talk about a little bit, let's move into some of human design and how that can help you really identify what helps you show up as your best self in business and in life.
Okay, so human design, I just want to like put a disclaimer out there, is super duper complex, right? Mm-hmm. So there are people that have studied this far deeper and much longer than I have. They are greater experts than I am, but I've been incorporating it into my own self-practice and into the way that I do strategy now since about 2017 is when I was first introduced to it. And it has been a game changer because if we think about things from like an ancestral perspective, right? When we trust our bodies to guide us, we're so much more in tune with how we're designed to do anything, just move through life, move through business. And so human design for me became kind of a permission slip. I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of feminine and masculine energy. I tend to be a lot more in the masculine. I mean, I'm a strategist through and through. And so tapping into the feminine is harder for me. But when I had the masculine, like energetic blueprint to look at, it became something that I couldn't ignore in terms of how to give myself permission to do it my way. So it's become a tool that I love to use. And the reason I was saying that, like, it takes most people about 8 years to fully embody their human design. And so it's really, really complex. So my hope today is, you know, that some of you take away just like a little nugget, a little tidbit, something to break open a little bit more curiosity, or just a, you know, affirmation of why I don't like to do something or why I love doing this one thing, because that is going to help you propel down a path of more alignment. So human design is just one of those things. I love all the tools, right? Whether it's Colby or Myers-Briggs or DISC or Enneagram, like give me all the things, but it's what you do with the data and how you start to really leverage it and use it. So for me, it's truly data that gives me some insight into myself that I probably already had on a subconscious level. But when we see it in a written form, it's different. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a coaching session with a client that I've worked with maybe for, 6 months, a year, and I've been telling them the same thing over and over again in terms of like, hey, you should really give yourself, the opportunity to try this thing this way, or this really doesn't seem like an aligned business model for you. And there's so much resistance. And then I hand them their human design chart and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I totally get it. And I'm like, I've been telling you this for 6 months, but when we see it and it's like outside of ourselves, something changes. So, in full disclosure, I was really resistant to the idea of human design at first. I was like, what is this thing? It's a lot of just like stuff on a piece of paper that's really overwhelming. And what am I going to do with all of this? And so I didn't really go back to it for about a year after the first time I was introduced. And then I came back to it again and I'm like, oh, this is pretty accurate. There's some really interesting things here. And so then I just started embracing it a little bit more and a little bit more, but it doesn't have to be, the only thing, right?
Sure.
It's just one of the pieces of the puzzle, but I want to share my insights with all of you so that if it resonates, it's something that you can dive into.
So, and from my experience, because I've worked with you, I've done a huge deep dive and we did the Kobe and the human design. And I remember when she first put the report in front of me, I was like, oh my gosh, where the heck was this when I had my business partners? Because we would have saved so much conflict because you just have this deeper understanding of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is these aha moments. And there's still, I've been studying it now for about a year. It's been almost 2 years. It'll be almost 2 years. And I totally agree with her that like I'm still learning little things as I continue to dig deeper into human design. So how many of you here are hearing about human design for the first time today? Okay, I love this. And I'm sure that some of you that are listening, you're like, what is that? So let's go like basics. How would you describe human design? And let's tie it in. Most of our listeners are entrepreneurs,
Sure.
people that are thinking about doing entrepreneurship. How would you describe human design and how it helps you as a business owner?
Yeah, let's go with like the basic description because I think that's easiest. If you want to learn more about the origin, like have at it. It's a little bit out there. I will just tell you that it's considered a synthesis. And the way that I would describe it is it's an energetic blueprint of you. It literally shows us how you are designed to operate. There are two sides to the human design chart. It really shows us our unconscious and our conscious traits. But I like to pull it back to the very basic fundamentals, especially for all of my entrepreneurship friends, so that we can start to figure out like, how can I apply this right now? Because I know some of you and some of you I'm meeting for the first time, and I know that everybody shares the common trait of being a mover and a shaker in here. And you're like, okay, I've got some new data. What do I do with it? It really gives us simply insight of how we are designed to go through the day-to-day and how we are made to make decisions individually. Because I've already seen all of your data, and sure, there are groups, but we are not all meant to be deciding things in the same way or going through life. And so really it's your energetic blueprint. And then it gets down into lots and lots of layers of really complex and individual characteristics.
Sure.
Which is where we get the different gates. And there's a lot of contemplation. And so one of the cool things about human design is you can get some data really quickly to make some big shifts. But then there's a whole lot of stuff that's going to take time, and you have to contemplate it and figure out what it means for you and how it shows up in your life. And so just continuing to come back to it is the biggest thing. And I mean, there is a lot in my own chart that I haven't even explored yet. And I might get to it sometime or I might not, but I've really given myself the permission to just say it's there when it feels good.
Yeah.
And so at its basics, it's your own energetic blueprint.
Think of it like a manual, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like your guide that tells you what to do and how you show up. And I listen to my recordings from her, from my sessions, probably once a quarter, because I have the ahas like, oh, I forgot about that, or, oh, that's how I show up. So it's really great to start to get, when you look at your chart, you're going to be like, there's a lot of stuff here. But she's going to break it down for us. And she does a great job of explaining it and putting it into terms where things just start to click. And you start to realize, for me, like, frustration is one of my, what do you call it?
You're
when
not
you're not,
self-theme.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're not self-theme. And so when I feel myself being frustrated, I can go, okay, what am I not aligned with? Where am I not showing up in the way that I'm supposed to? And it really helps you get back on track and bring that frustration level down. So there's a lot of really tactical things that happen when you start to study your human design too. So let's talk a little bit about the different types of designs and kind of like a high level of each type.
Sure. Well, I have a cheat sheet, right? Because I've already seen your data, like I mentioned, but if I didn't know, I could look around this room right now and truly pick out the generators and manifesting generators in the group. Typically, we have about 70% of our population who are manifesting generators and generators. So just based on math, right, I would be a good shot. But I can see you based on how you're moving and how you're responding, and the head nodders and the mm-hmers, and my sacral was responding to her when she said things, right? And then so the manifestors and manifesting generators, that's the most common, and they are sacral beings. You'll hear me use the term sacral a lot. You have a defined sacral. It's the second center up from the very bottom of the chart. And when you have a defined center, that means you have consistent access to energy there. So your strategy, if you're a generator or manifesting generator, is literally to respond to things. So events like this are a gold mine for you, for ideas and connections and opportunities. And so the very best thing you can do is continue to put yourself out there to see what lights you up and what you're like, I like that for them, but not for me, right? It's going to help guide you if you're open to it. Then we have the projectors. There are two of you in here, and there's usually 20% of the population that are projectors. My daughter, I have one child and she's almost 8 and she is a projector. I am a generator. So the way that I move and I go through life is very different than my projector child or those of you that are projectors, because their strategy is so different. They are meant to wait for an invitation. So if we're not careful, we're going to overshadow the projectors in our life, because the generators, manifesting generators, we're going and we're talking and we're vibing, but they're like the lighthouse is the archetype that really describes them, because their beacon is really bright once we see it. And so their strategy is to wait for the invitation, because if they're continually interjecting themselves and trying to get noticed, they're draining their energy, right? So to learn for them, what does that look like to not be in response, because that's going to exhaust them. That's going to drain their energy so much. But the thing is we have this thing called conditioning. And I mentioned earlier about the idea of like ancestral, just responding and trusting our intuition. Well, that's great. As small children, we do that, but we lose it over time because we're conditioned through the way we're parented and through society and just all the things, our education. And so the projectors become very conditioned to operate like what? Generators, manifesting generators, because we're all over the place, right? So that's really important to notice the difference, especially because you're going to have people in your life. And so the way that you, meaning you sacral beings, are going to interact with them is it should look different. And then we have manifestors, which we don't have any manifestors in the room, but manifestors are really special. My husband is a manifestor, and I will tell you that when I learned that, it was really eye-opening in our marriage. So manifestors they decide and inform. We all know a manifestor or two. They're the people that are like, how'd you come up with why are you so successful at that stuff? Like, I'm over here striving to make things happen. And you're just like, this idea and my business is super successful. And you're like, I kind of hate you, right? Because they're just like bringing these big ideas to life. And that's magical for them. And we all have like shadow sides, right? And so the challenge for the manifestor is they need somebody to keep the idea going once it happens. So that's where the generators and manifesting generators come in. But understanding like our little family of 3, we have 3 very different ways of doing life based on our energetic blueprint. Do I wake up every morning and review that? And like, no, but sometimes when I stop for a second and notice when I'm frustrated, it's like, I need to remember this thing, or I'm trying to force my daughter to go through life the way that I do it, which is not going to work for her, right? And so that's going to cause frustration for me and obviously for her. And then we have so there are 5 types. So we have the manifesting generator. We talked about the projector, the pure manifestor, and then we have something called the reflector. Those are really rare. We have about 1% of the population that is a reflector. And they're truly meant to wait an entire lunar period, so a month, before they make big decisions. So, like buying a house or deciding where they want to get married or something like that. Big decisions are really meant to process a lot of ideas and thoughts, and they're not meant to be fast movers. So, since I've been doing this work, I think I've had 3 reflectors in total, right? And I've literally done probably 1,000 human design charts at this point. So they're very rare. We don't have any of those. So 5 types, but each type has its own strategy. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really important first and foremost. So if you are brand new to human design and this is the first that you're hearing, like that's all I want you to know. Okay, I'm going to learn my type today, and I'm going to know what my strategy is. So how I'm supposed to be going through life. And then we get into things like authority, how I'm meant to make decisions. And that piece is really important. There's so many layers, but we start by going through like peeling back the layers of the onion, because it takes 8 years. And I mean, that's if that's our only focus, right? Who has time for that? So
yeah, the authority piece is probably my favorite, because I'm a sacral generator. So I make decisions with my gut, and I can make decisions really, really fast. And I used to let people be like, how did you decide that quick? And I'm also a Libra, so I'm supposed to be indecisive, but I'm actually very decisive. And so I was always confused by it, because when I would look at traditional astrology, I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be indecisive. But when I learned my human design, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why it happens. So when you're able to start applying it and starting to learn, like Melissa said, just a little bit about each type, you start to then recognize, like, Stephanie's probably a generator. She's nodding her head at me right now, right? And you start to recognize stuff about your friends, about your spouse, about your kids, and it allows you to understand people and to give people more grace, because something that's frustrating you about them may not be that you're actually frustrated. It just goes against the way that you like things, right? Through your lens. So I love this. So let's talk a little bit about some tactical ways that once you understand your type, that you can start to apply human design in a very basic form in life.
So I think that the biggest thing is just noticing, right? Being curious. Like that's the first step to any change, is being curious, because if we want to change something, we've got to figure out where we start. So I'm not saying that any of you are not in alignment with how you're designed, but how can you be in better alignment, right? Mm-hmm. So truly just understanding your strategy. So the manifesting generators and generators, we're here to respond. So what does that mean for me? That's the question I want you to ask yourself. And what it doesn't mean is to be forcing things. So where I catch myself all the time is when my frustration shows up, it's usually because something's not going fast enough. Something's not going, according to plan well enough. And what happens is I get into a very, very masculine energy, and I start pushing. It's never going to work, because I'm not a manifestor. I'm not going to just make something happen. So really noticing where you're trying to make decisions outside or within yourself, right? We're meant to make decisions because we're responding to something outside of ourselves. So this comes up in business all the time, because we might get a really great idea and we're like, I'm going to go make this thing happen. But like, are you doing that because it was an idea that you had, or are you doing that because it was in response to something? And you hear all of you, like this is resonating with some of you, but it's really hard work. So I'm not here to be like the good idea fairy and just be like, okay, and now you know, and so go and like embody this. It's going to be frustrating until you start to feel it and understand what that means. And so I've really had to change how I navigate business ideas, right? Because I'll get these ideas and I want to go and make them happen. And if I look back through my journey as an entrepreneur, the things that have worked super well, and it was like easy breezy, and I made money while I was on vacation, like that type of a vibe, that was because I was truly in alignment and I was responding to something, versus I got this idea and I tried to then operate outside of my strategy and probably act like a manifestor, like my husband, right? And that didn't work, so that caused frustration. So back to Danielle's question, like the best thing that you can do is really hone in on, what's my strategy? Okay, it's to respond, or projectors to wait for an invitation, so that you're honoring that and so that you're noticing. And then how are you setting yourself up for success? Because we can hack all of these things. Like that's the beauty of it. It's not like, okay, now I know this about myself and I have to either be waiting for an invitation forever. Like, what does that mean? So invitation hacking, for instance, for the projectors, and I'm sharing this with everybody because you're all going to know a projector or 5 or 10, and you want to make sure that you're giving them opportunities to also be invited. So asking for input, right? So as the projector, if I were a projector, one of the hacks that I would do would be like, hey, I have a couple ideas if you're interested in hearing them. And then when you get that exchange from somebody, oh yeah, please tell us, that's going to be so much more potent, right? The exchange of energy is going to be so much more different versus if you're, picture we're in this room right now and we're all talking and having a conversation. The manifestors and manifesting generators, you guys are going to just be sharing whatever. And the projector is going to be trying to interject. And even if they get someone's attention, it's not going to sink in the same way. Versus if they have that, hey, can you tell me what you're thinking? Can you share, right? So noticing when you're in a group, like, is there somebody who's a little bit quiet? Can you invite them in, right? You don't have to know somebody's design to be able to get the most out of it. And then the manifesting generator and generator strategy to respond, especially when you're feeling stuck and stagnant, give yourself something to respond to. I mean, like, that's the biggest thing. When you're just feeling like nothing's working or just kind of in a plateau, like, go have coffee with your girlfriends or come to one of these events or maybe listen to a podcast or whatever it might be, because then you're going to light up your sacral with like, or it's going to start going again. So those little tiny things are going to evolve into really big things because it's a new practice. You're building a new habit. So just remembering every morning when you wake up, like, am I living with, in alignment with my strategy? Am I forcing things or am I allowing myself to be in response? Or am I getting frustrated because I'm not getting an invitation and because I'm a projector? How do we start to hack that?
Love. One of my favorite things that I learned from it. So I at one point had almost 60 employees. And I would get really frustrated when they would send me a bunch of information and a bunch of different options. And I didn't understand why until I had my human design. And it's because I'm a sacral responder. I like a this or that. And then I can be decisive, right? So little things like that. And then you can start to communicate with people in your life, your spouse, your business partners, your team. You can start to share with them, hey, this is how I show up best. This is how I like to receive information. So it kind of goes both ways where you can start to help people understand you better. And then you can develop even better relationships. It was game changer learning what my kids and my husband's sign or design was. So good. So let's talk a little bit about, I want to get some more of your story. So let's peel the curtain back a bit and talk about Melissa before human design, because I bet that is where some of your mess lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I want to answer that, but you said something like, I want to give you all a little tiny piece of homework. The manifesting generators and generators, seriously, go home and tell whoever you live with, whether it's your kids or your husband, like, don't give me like open-ended questions. So perfect example, hey, do you want to go out to dinner on Friday night? You can respond to that, right? Yes or no. And then when your husband says, well, where do you want to go? What's the feeling that comes up? Anybody just stress. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But too much. So for me, it's immediately like, I can't even think. There's like an absence of thoughts. There's a guard that comes up. But if I say, do you want to go to Mexican or Thai food? See?
Done.
It seems so basic and so simple, but I mean, so that was a game changer for me with my family, with my team. My assistant, when she wants me to get stuff done, she gives me a list of top priorities and I choose which one I want to start with, and boom, I go so fast. But if she says, hey, we need to work on our Black Friday launch, what do you want to focus on this week?
Mute.
Nothing. So, I mean, truly, like, those little shifts have changed my efficiency so much. So me before human design,
Yes.
Just typical type A personality, go-getter, did everything based on true grit. And I got a lot of praise growing up for all the things that I accomplished and how many things I could juggle at once. And
Anyone else feel
so
that? You see some nods?
that carried over very, very much into, how I was conditioned to perform. And so always on the edge of burnout, I'm sure, very much, cat on a hot tin roof a lot of times, but you wouldn't know it. I mean, I always got also praised for being so confident and having things figured out. But inside I was just like, waiting for the next thing. And am I doing enough? And really, really gauging my self-worthiness based on how much I was doing. Like that was definitely me before human design.
Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper. Let's get into some of the mess because we're on Magics in the Mess here. And that's where we connect with one another, right?
Yeah.
Because it helps us see that, no, like she just described, on the outside, everybody was like, man, she looks like she has it all together. But on the inside, she wasn't feeling good. So let's talk about what happened. What was a time where you were like, okay, something has to change that led you to human design? What was the tipping point?
I don't even know if it was that led me to human design. I think that when human design showed up for me, it was more of like, I'm ready to be curious about this. I think if you want to get into the mess, because I know you do, it was leaving corporate because I met a guy on eHarmony and giving up my entire, identity. It was pre-kids because I fell in love and just like trusting that it was all going to work out. And it did, thank goodness, but it wasn't like a fairy tale in the sense of there were no struggles. There were no struggles from a relationship standpoint there, but there were struggles in terms of my self-worth because I gave up my identity based on what I thought it to be, right? It was all external things. It was all of my accomplishments, all the things. And we left my career in Boise, Idaho and went to North Carolina. And I had a lot of connections because of the industry that I was in, but I didn't get any jobs. I mean, I probably applied for like 100 jobs that year. And it was all denials for being overly qualified, or they would find out that I was associated with the military because of our move. Like, oh, what brought you to, the Research Triangle area? I'm like, oh, well, my fiance is in the military. Oh, that's really nice. Okay, well, we're looking for somebody who's going to be really long-term in this position. Well, you hear that over and over again, and it starts to like degrade your confidence, right? So fast forward to the most exciting time in my life because I had, met the one and I was so happy on that front, but also from a, self-fulfillment standpoint, I was at the bottom. I mean, I was to the point where I was like, I didn't have to work either. That was the reality of the situation. I wanted to, I desired to, like, that was so important for me. And I was like, I'll go work at Starbucks. And I don't even think that I felt like I could probably get a job at Starbucks. So I went from, 6 figures in corporate to literally not being able to work anywhere. And I still remember this. I took a job at a tutoring company in this tiny military town that we lived in. But what I really was doing for this woman was organizing her Christmas ornaments. And selling her really weird porcelain dolls on Craigslist. And I was like, I cannot. Like, what has my life become? I mean, I actually never have told that story out loud. It's just like something that it is like a skeleton that I like to keep in the closet. And I was like, there has to be something else. And so that's what I hate porcelain dolls to this day. So weird. There you go. There's the mess. But no, in all seriousness, that pushed me to be like, there has to be something else. I kept hearing about this idea of like working online, but I was like, I don't have a blog, and that's the only thing I thought working online was. So somehow, I don't even remember the path, but I got a job as a virtual assistant. So I was so excited, and I was making $12 an hour, you guys, from 6 figures to $12 an hour. But I didn't care because I was like, I'll figure this out. This was my thing to respond to. So I got my foot in the door and I was excited about it. It wasn't porcelain dolls. Like, I'll take it, right? Like, let me in there. And so boom, I just started responding to opportunities, and I had so many things. But what happened was I got right back into the hamster wheel of
go.
I really remember it was within the first 30 days of working for this agency. And one of the girls was like, how do you respond to the Slack messages so quickly? And I was like, just really proud of myself that she'd noticed. But really, I was like, had all the alerts on my watch and I was looking all the time. And I took so much pride on how much, like, who cares? And this version of me, I'd be like, don't do that. Like, that's a disaster waiting to happen. But that's how I was, again, measuring success. So as I built my business and things took off and I stopped making $12 an hour and got to a different, stage of the game, which I'm so grateful for that opportunity because that gave me the ability to do something else. I got right back into almost burning out again, and it's weird to say that out loud because I don't even want to admit that I allowed myself to get there, especially with all the knowledge and tools and experience. But it was more of a burnout from the fact of like, I can keep doing this because I'm a generator. You guys, we can. Like, that's the thing. We have all this energy, but it's how we are designed to use the energy, right? I realized that I didn't want to keep using my energy in the way that I was. And now I had a baby and I had an amazing husband and I wanted to enjoy that. And I had no energy left over for those things. So when human design was introduced to me, I was resistant because I didn't want to learn another thing. And that would mean when we have more self-awareness, we have to do some work, right? And so it was kind of like, that's neat, but I'm going to dismiss it. So it kept coming back into my life. And that's really, I think, so a long roundabout story to get to the question that you asked, but there wasn't a tipping point that allowed human design to be like the answer. There was a lot of tipping points. And when human design finally came to me, I was like, I can't keep ignoring this. There might be something to it because the way I've been doing this is not sustainable.
Sure. Isn't it funny how that happens? Sometimes we keep having the same lesson over and over until we're actually ready to learn the lesson.
Yes.
It's like that teacher keeps showing up even though we don't like it.
Right.
Okay, so if you could go back to porcelain dolls, okay? You're organizing Christmas decorations and porcelain dolls. What would you, and I want you to relate this because all of us have a moment in time where we struggled, where we were like, is this it? Questioning everything. Am I good enough? All of those things. So I want everyone to get themselves in that headspace, right? What would you say to that version of you? What would you want her to know?
I think I would want her to know that it would be okay to not be doing anything. That maybe I should have poured into like doing Pilates and gardening but seriously, I mean, then this all comes back to conditioning. Like, I have amazing parents. I was raised super well, but I watched a mom who never rested. Yeah. So I didn't know how to do that. And so it felt really wrong to be sitting at home in, my fiance's house, right? I had a house, but I sold it to come here. I'm sitting in somebody else's house. I had a lot of things, right, in the sense of my own shit that I needed to probably have worked through. So it would have been, if I could go back to her, I'd be like, hey, why don't you work on yourself a little bit instead of organizing these porcelain dolls and Christmas decor? Like, that's what it would be.
Radical thought, right?
You could be, it's okay to be still. Like, I would have also whispered that to her because that was it. I didn't know how to be idle. Hello, generator, right? I was like, had all this energy that I thought that I had to use to do work.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much talk about nervous system regulation. There's burnout is such a buzzword. I mean, how many of you feel like you've experienced burnout? Okay. For those of you tuning in, every single hand went up, including mine and Melissa's. And giving ourselves the permission to just be enough as who we are and not have to be proving and really start pursuing what feels good and what lights us up. So we're sitting in a room full of 20 overachieving, high achieving, incredible women here. What do you wish that quote unquote overachievers could know?
That really getting honest with yourself in terms of how you measure success is the number one most important thing that you can do. Like, really sitting down and looking at how you're measuring success and like, is that true for you? How much of that is influenced by, great at Pam or your husband or what you think it should look like versus like, what does success really, really look like to you? And are you using that metric to really measure your efforts, because I think that that is a question that I have to ask myself a lot, because I
Yeah.
still fall back into old patterns, right? This year has been really challenging for me on a personal side with navigating a lot of very unexpected and hard health things with my parents. And that has had to become a primary role for me that I wasn't prepared to take on. And it's forced me to put business on the back burner, which I don't love to do because I love business. I love working just like all of you. But then, somebody said to me, and it may have been you, like, you're never going to regret the time that you were able to spend helping your parents. And like, that was such a big, like, I know that, but then to hear it from somebody outside of myself, hello, something to respond to, it wasn't my own idea. Then it was like, okay, that gets to be a measure too, because I'm really able to be here for them and to go all in. And the more that I surrendered to that this year and just said, like, I can't do all the things. And so maybe this year looks different in terms of how I'm measuring success as a high achiever. Then things started to pick back up and ramp back up. I'm in the busiest season of my business that I've been in years.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in the fullest surrender that I've probably been in maybe all my life. And so again, not forcing, right? So the biggest thing that I want to encourage all of you to do is, like, how are you measuring your self-worth, your definition of success? And is it really your own?
I love that. I want to add to this because this is coming up a lot with clients that I'm working with, workshops that I'm running, and it really aligns with, I call it the contentment filter. Because in today's society, if you think about our comparison radius growing up, we had our neighbors, our family members, the kids we went to school with, and where we traveled. And that was about it, right? And now when we open up these and we start scrolling, as soon as we open up that app, there's somebody doing better than us.
Oh.
And we immediately go, well, that means they're happier than us. But we don't actually know that. I mean, there's billionaires on this planet that don't have any say in their schedule. Okay, that's not freedom. There's no way they're happy if they don't have the freedom. So to add to what she's saying about defining what success looks like for you, also think about, what does contentment look like? Because when we say we want to be happier, what we really mean is we want to be content. When we're content, we're happy, we're at peace, we're in flow, we're in alignment. And so in order to combat this little guy that's making us feel less than, or making us feel like we're not doing enough, or our life isn't where it should be, we have to identify and anchor in, what does content look like for us? Because when that starts to creep up, go back to your definition and then filter it through that. Am I living in my version of content? Okay, well, then I'm letting outside noise really affect me. Okay, so success and your contentment filter, because they go hand in hand. Okay, so this has been so good. I want to know where we can find you. For those that are tuning in and aren't here for this incredible workshop where they get their charts, where can they find you to get more information to learn about themselves?
So I tend to probably hang out on Instagram the most. So Melissa Froehlich _biz, and we'll put that in the show notes because nobody can, I wanted the last name Smith or something, but I got Froehlich with a maiden name of Weinblatt. So I've not had it easy. So it's really me behind the DMs. I mean, if you're curious about anything that we talked about, truly come ask. I mean, it's fun for me. It gives me something to respond to. It's, it's part of my strategy, but I spend most of my time coaching and consulting, and I get to do things that I really love and work with women that I really love. And I was thinking about that probably in the last couple of weeks of, I do have a roster of dream clients, and the women that continue to come into my communities are amazing, but that's not because it just magically happened that way. It's been really about being in the right rooms with the right people. I mean, I have Kristen to thank from so many experiences of connecting me with amazing people. That's how I know Danielle. And it's a really fun life that I get to live right now. And so come chat with me if there's something that I can share. I really believe in, like, being an open book and sharing resources and continuing that connecting pattern.
So good. And we'll drop everything in the show notes. She also has an incredible offer for our listeners to help you really understand your chart and your design. And something that I love to do here at Magic in the Mess, because we don't do this enough, is celebrate the little wins, big or small. And we don't stop. We're so busy. We're always doing all the things, and we don't stop always to celebrate the little ones. And all your little ones are what make the big ones happen.
Huge. Yes.
So in the last week, what is one like magic moment that you didn't pause to celebrate that we can celebrate with you today?
Taking the time to go and get a blowout this morning. Bet you weren't expecting that one. I mean, seriously, like that was a treat, but I had to work through prioritizing that, because I was like, oh, but I could be answering emails or working or doing whatever. But it was that same thing of slowing down long enough to pour into me. So,
and sitting there and just enjoying it, not doing the emails or the social outreach, and just taking a moment for yourself is so big and so needed. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited for the workshop after this, and that this isn't goodbye. This is, I'll see you in a minute.
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely.
And thank you all for being here for the live show.